Wow, so amazing. Um, and thank you for sharing that reconnection. We talk a lot about the child that we have inside and reconnecting with that. In your case, coming from different cultures into a new country, um, and there are these different beliefs, people are normally link those beliefs are linking them to religion or spirituality, and sometimes it's not clear the difference. Um, is that something that also was happening to you and was forging the person you are today? How did you face these different cultures and how that actually make the beautiful soul Sangita that we have today?
That's a very profound question. I have wondered and wondered, but I've stopped wondering if it's religion or spirituality. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And I'm not very religious, actually, but I'm deeply spiritual and I've always been spiritual. And I have relied on my instinct and insights pretty much all my life. Uh, um, and when I was younger, probably in my career, maybe I would have insights and instincts, but I would ignore. I would listen more to what I was taught in school or in my training programs. But now I've learned that the core of me and the belief that I have and the instincts and insights, that is the most important. And I'm learning to listen to that more. Um, and particularly where I grew up in Nepal, religion and spirituality are actually so intertwined, it's very hard to separate. So it's particularly hard for me. So I've just stopped asking that question, David, if you really ask me. Um, um, but if I had to choose, I would say I'm more spiritual, than religious. Yeah, that's how I would answer that question. Yeah,
Okay.
and your other part was how have I reconciled and combined these different parts of different cultures that I've lived in. I've actually studied and worked in more than just Nepal and the United States. I've lived and worked in Africa, Europe, many different places. And I feel very fortunate for having been exposed to it. And have also learned that wherever you go, the ancient cultures look so similar. It's uncanny. When I was um, at this old museum in Atacama, Chile, where it was the museum of, people that were 10,000 years old, or older in this tiny museum. The things that were there on display were so similar to how I grew up in Nepal that I actually thought, wait a minute, there was a landmass that connected Asia and Latin America. This must have been before the land separated and there was a sea between us. That we are all connected as human beings. Um, Back then, 10,000 years ago or more, and now. So ultimately, it is that consciousness and that connection as human beings, living through happiness, joy, pain, on our dreams. I feel so connected to people no matter where they're from. That's how I've, built this together and stitched this quilt, if you will, because I live in a country that I did not grow up in, and I'm raising two children who were born here, who very much consider themselves, Americans of Nepali heritage. That's how I've been able to reconcile and stitch a quilt, no matter where I live, and create a home inside me, no matter where I am and where I'm living.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And as you're saying, is there any link in your past link into your present and even being a mother of two beautiful souls as well, um, irrespective of the place that we're living is what is making home is about what you are bringing as a home, isn't it? um, And also about, was there anything that um, was making an impact in your case, a precise moment, or your journey is in the sense of becoming more conscious and actually becoming also in your professional career uh, a more conscious leadership, which is something that we want also to support. It was sort of a process, or it was just integrating that personal life and adventure and all the traveling and cultures and traditions into your profession. How was that combined in your case?
Yes, it wasn't one particular moment, but it was, I would say, a series of experiences and evolution. We all grow and evolve as individuals, right? And I would say I was very academic and mind focused. I have a tendency to overthink and use my mind, honestly, a little too much. And no matter what I did, certain things would happen that were not in my control and the most unexpected way. And when I looked back and saw a pattern, it was that, overall, my realization has been there are the biggest things in life, the most important things in life that shape our life and influence our lives are not in our control. And it's so hard for me to say that and admit it as someone who's believes in hard work and you shape your own path and you train during your life and all these things that are again the mind thinking, right? But that things happen for a reason and that there's a grand scheme that happens, but it's not in my control. So kind of learning to let go. And then in my professional career, I'm a senior leader or executive in these various organizations that are actually socially conscious and trying to um, create a movement and lead a movements about women's empowerment, climate change, or global democracy or U.S. democracy are the three movements that I've played a key role in shaping. um, Collaboration is so important. None of these things can be done alone. So, no matter how successful my organization was, or I was as a leader, there was no question that you needed to collaborate with so many stakeholders, make sure that my goals were in sync with theirs or their organizations. Is something that probably in my last organization on climate change, I worked for a philanthropic entity that was working on climate action in the US. I was very much a collaborator and saw that on the ground that collaboration is what makes you stronger. And I had this unexpected sort of layoff from my organization, very unexpected, because my CEO left and then I ended up also leaving. That opened up this new window. I learned about the Spain Consciousness Program. It's something that I'd been very interested in. As I said, I was raised by a very spiritual mother who's also very spiritual now. And I've been pursuing this spiritual path for the last 20 years, but having a demanding job, and being a mother, I just didn't have the time to dedicate as much time and energy as I would like. So this has been such a blessing in disguise. One door opens, it closes, another one opens, right? So this, I feel, a good, wise spiritual friend of mine says the universe is unfolding exactly how it's supposed to unfold. And I feel that had I not left that organization and the job that I loved, and unexpectedly, this Spain program and this journey that I've been yearning for, a structured curriculum that is taught by someone who's respected, would have never happened. So the universe is unfolding how it's supposed to. So this fell in my lap, but it's something I've been seeking all my life in my professional life. And I have a certain vision for the future about how I want to combine that and combine my passion for women's empowerment, democracy, and climate. And creating a world that's livable for my children and the future generation. So I have a vision for that.
Wow, that sounds like a plan, actually. And again, you were talking about um, you know, looking at potential threats as opportunities.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is part of, what many people are calling a new paradigm. Um, and also about conscious leadership in the sense of it's not only about the structure and the organizations and the tools, it's also to do with um, uh, the people, leading the way to become more conscious of, their team. In your case, how would you say, what is more important, or how you vision this combination between, all these structures that currently are emerging in this new paradigm, and this training that you are mentioning that you're now having like a new opportunity to sort of upgrade our operating system. How is that combination in your case?
That's such a wonderful way of putting it, basically upgrading our operating system, right? So clearly, I've had all this training all my life to become a certain leader. I have the technical skills and certain expertise. Um, and what I think should be taught from kindergarten to the future generation, I'm only learning now. Granted, I was very fortunate to grow up in a home and a culture with that is infused with spirituality and conscious living, but I was also trained to not pay much attention to that I'm having to now say, actually, that is what I should pay attention to. Um, so the way I see this is, as I mentioned very early on in this interview, I consider myself a very instinctual and insightful, person. But my trainings, my formal and academic and professional trainings, told me to sort of ignore that, and that's not as important as what you're learning in school or academic training, right, or professional, because I went to a professional school to study international policy and international affairs. um, but over the years, the couple of decades of experience I've had as a leader, I have learned to really pay attention to what comes first, and the most important is people and the planet. And the planet is full of conscious beings, including animals. And, there are people who say, plants also have consciousness. Um, but we need each other. We need the planet, and the planet, needs us, probably, needs us less than we need the planet. And people are the essence of organizations and society and community and the world at large. So, of course, I listen to people, and I'm proud to say that the people I've managed and I've had many direct reports, like senior leaders, see me as someone who, is a mentor and really cares about them, because that is the most important thing for me. um, the fact that they come with certain trainings and expertise is a given. The world is full of so many talented and smart people, so that's a given. But I also look for those who maybe have that higher frequency and level of consciousness, that have the proclivity and the ability to combine that consciousness and higher thinking with their trainings and expertise. And I've had opportunity to experiment with that in my various roles.
Wow. Wow. Um, there was a jammy main course. You were sort of anticipating as well that after what you've been living, personally and professionally, you got a good idea. What would you want to leave as a legacy? Can you tell us a little bit in this um, piece of dessert, um, what is in the works, or we like to say, what is in the oven for you?
Yes, absolutely. It is very much in the oven, maybe even on the countertop, still in preparation mode. Maybe it hasn't gone in the oven yet, but it's something I've been thinking about, and I hope to have this Spain, the training program, the Inner Alchemy program we're part of, to help me bring this to fruition is how do I combine my expertise as a leader, um, a global leader who's had incredible opportunities in this world to contribute and to learn how do I contribute to having an exponential impact in creating a more conscious leadership, practices spread more quickly. So one of the ideas that I've had is I'm, in between jobs right now. I'm in transition, so I don't know where I will land next. But once I land, one of the things that I will be working on and putting in the oven is the idea of spiritual coaching. So a coaching practice is something I've benefited from very much. I've been really lucky to have executive coaches, and I'm a firm believer that one cannot have these compartmentalization of professional coaching and then personal coaching, and that they magically sort of live in these two compartments. That if we live a spiritual life and a more conscious life, and if we are trained for the whole life in consciousness and spirituality, that of course impacts your personal and professional life. Hence, we become more conscious leader, and we work with and influence our sphere of influence, and direct reports or peers or other stakeholders outside of organizations, and the wider community who then learn from our examples. So that's an idea that I've been, that's been percolating in my head about maybe starting my own practice around spiritual coaching, or becoming part of a community so that this practice can spread at an exponential rate, because our world really needs that.
Yeah.
So I have some ideas on the fringes, on the on the outskirts. The main, there's still a little bit of time before this goes in the oven, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure, and resonates so much. We are always saying that, we it's always a matter of perspectives, and it's more about becoming the change we wish to see, and that is to do with doing the inner work.
Hmm.
And we are really privileged to be doing this transformational training in this School of Consciousness, which is actually, again, um, making us realize that um, there is something to be done by our own. If we want to change things out there, we gotta change things in here first. And how to
Absolutely.
facilitate that um, with different tools and also different frequencies, because everybody is speaking in a different frequency and is touching similar frequencies. In your case, your frequency is amazing. And thank you for telling us what is almost in the oven. And it sounds pretty exciting, and I'm pretty sure that is going to be a great legacy for the future generations, bringing your experience, knowledge, and wisdom into this um, way of bringing that in the world. Um, just to finish, we're just wrapping up. You want to share some piece of advice or wisdom with our audience based on that idea to transition on how to facilitate or even support this work-life balance somehow?
Mhm. I want to connect this back to, my own passion and my vision, around the three things that I mentioned: women's empowerment, democracy, and climate action and climate, because it's an existential crisis, we have. And ultimately, out of the love that I have for myself and my children and the future generation, um, my hope and my own vision for, what's in the it needs to go in the oven, that we talked about dessert, is to really women's empowerment and climate, all of these things, these issues that I feel very passionate about, is going to ultimately create a world that's more habitable, more livable, more loving towards each other, because we need to take care of each other. So the one piece of advice that I would share with the audience is that, it's lessons that I've learned myself, maybe a little too late, is one, listen to your insights and instinct, and what you are looking for out there in the world and you're probably searching for all your life is right within you. So find the time, if you haven't, um, to just be still, to look within and to find the peace and the love and the universe inside, because it's all within, because we are made of stars, and everything we're looking for is right within us. That is my probably my biggest piece of advice and my own learning, at 50 years old. Yes, that's what I would say.
Wow. So I think we're going to stay with that. Go within and look into the instincts and your insight and your intuition. Um, yes. Um, let's leave it there. I think that is actually very, very powerful. So thank you so much, Sangita, for your time and energy in this beautiful and jammy interview today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.